Glory to Jesus Christ, and welcome to St. Cyril Methodius Ukrainian Orthodox Church in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm Father Gregory, the pastor. It is Sunday, March 16th, the second Sunday of Great and Holy Lent, the Sunday of St. Gregory of Palamas. St. Gregory, like many of the fathers of the church, was born into what today we would call a life of privilege. His father was at the Byzantine court, and Gregory was himself also raised at the court until he embraced monastic life, eventually on Monathos, and would eventually become Archbishop of Thessaloniki. In this, Gregory was not unique among many of the fathers. The three holy hierarchs, Basil the Great, Gregory the theologian, John Chrysostom, as well as St. Augustine, were all born into lives of relative privilege. The difference between how the fathers dealt with their privilege and how we talk about it today, I think, is instructive. Today, of course, we find the notion of privilege to be inherently unjust, suspect. But I would suggest to you that the problem of privilege, especially for our lives in Christ, is not the simple fact of wealth or education or social prestige, but what we do with our privilege. For St. Gregory Palamas and the other fathers of the church, privilege was something that they put at the service of those who were in need. Today, of course, that's something that's difficult to think about, because when we think about privilege, we think about something that someone has. It's inherently unjust and needs to be taken away. But for the fathers of the church, privilege brought with it responsibility to care for others, especially for those who are vulnerable. Now, that's a proposition that most of us would probably agree to, at least in theory. But again, because we tend to be very materialistic in our way of thinking, we associate privilege with a very narrow band of human experience, usually people who are on the economic or social margins. And yet, for the fathers, everyone is vulnerable, and we just have different kinds of vulnerabilities, which is why there is the universal command to love, the universal command to forgive. Everyone is in need of charity. Everyone is in need of forgiveness. Everyone is in need of mercy and compassion. And so, if we are to be faithful to the example of the fathers, we need to put the privilege that we have, the riches that we have, whether they're material or educational or social or political, and put those at the service of those who are in need. And yet here it's important to realize that it's for us to determine personally, who it is that is in need that we can serve. I'm a university chaplain at a R1 university, so everyone that I serve is in some sense rather privileged. And yet they also have their own vulnerabilities. They also need the gospel. Other people will serve those who are in need in situations of extreme economic distress or in war. The question here is not what kind of need do we serve, but do we identify a need and then identify those in need and then serve them? Again, for the fathers of the church and for St. Gregory of Palamas, especially, this was something that he did with great generosity, not only at the expense of his own wealth, but also at times at the expense of his own freedom. He chose to defend the illiterate monks of Monathos who claimed to be able to see the divine light. He defended those who the church thought were eccentric, or at least marginal. There's always going to be someone marginal in our lives, and it's for us to use what God has given us for their good, for their defense. In fact, for St. Gregory, at one point, he was even imprisoned because, like St. Maximus the Confessor, his strident defense of the Orthodox faith. Well, what about you? What's your privilege? What are the gifts that you have that in some way set you apart, and maybe even, let's say, maybe a little above other people? What are you going to do with your privilege? Who are you going to serve? And are you going to serve them with generosity and enthusiasm, or are you going to serve them begrudgingly, or maybe even not at all? Well, I've got to get ready for liturgy. If you're here in the Madison area, please think about joining us this morning at liturgy at St. Cyril Methodius Ukrainian Orthodox Church at 1020 Regent Street in downtown Madison, Wisconsin. If you're not in the Madison area, maybe find an Orthodox church where you are and hopefully learn a little bit about the life and teaching of St. Gregory Palamas. But whatever you do this morning, have a good rest of your day. God bless you, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.